tasted blood and remembered what it gave. A shortcut. As I wandered the streets of New York City, it came to my attention that I hadn't thought of Lucy these last few days. Had that been Drakunen's plan? What did blood have to do with her? Tell me, Drakunen, I thought. But he wasn't there. That wasn't how it worked. Still, I sensed if he wanted, his presence could reappear. I felt it somehow by the continuous absence of the voices. I knew I would have to leave New York for him to leave my system, but I had unfinished business. I couldn't quite remember Simon's address. They all look so similar, these modern buildings. As to the architecture of old, like a simulation is to a body with breath, with muscle and blood. There I was again. I had received an injection, and now I was painfully addicted. The first week would be the hardest. I found myself thinking of ways I could do. How I could look for someone, a perpetrator, intercede with the victim. How ridiculous. Me. And yet, I felt my arms beneath my coat. I had muscle I had not felt before. It challenged my preconceptions of myself. Could I fly? What made me think that? I took a breath. When had I slept last? Not well, not in a little while. I caught my reflection in the gleaming bank window. When had I changed my glamour? But unmistakably I had aged myself. I could not remember when last I had done so, but perhaps it was just my face, my jaw, more muscular. And yet I looked older, I looked more like a grown man. The thing I was most suspicious of. This was Drakunen's doing, I thought, and yet thinking of him, I felt nothing like antipathy. At worst, I felt indifference. What good would it be to see Simon, if he were there? If not, I had to get my head straight. Spoiled brat. There again. Myself, but not myself. I needed sleep. I did not know where I could comfortably catch a few Z's in New York City these days. I did not want to risk sleeping in the park, so I went to the New York Public Library. The main reading room was quite full enough for a few men in large winter coats to be quite deliberately sleeping. A woman vacated a seat and I took it, my copy of Barnacle Harry's Tale of Pirating in hand. I sat and tried to relax, tried to close my eyes, but the scent... What had happened to me? The scent of so many mortals around me was... arousing. I got up. I bought the New York Public Library tote bag in the gift shop and put Harry's tale in there, as well as a few pencils I'd kept. I went to the computers, found the youth hostel, and made sure I still had my passport. I had. I lost time for a second. The scents were better here, more neutral. The scent of detergent and Windex from freshly cleaned windows. The young man reminded me a little of Simon, similar age probably. He had an inadvisable mustache. His innocence calmed me. I would not prey on children. Would I then on someone else? I did not know. I simply needed sleep.
Vicious?
Yes.
Never seen that name. My family is Lithuanian, and it usually has a prefix. My cousins are Hostelvicius, so you're just son of, but not of anyone?
Yes, I do not know. A passage of time, it's all a mystery.
Right. Anyway, you've got the last private room. If you need any extra towels, please let us know. Do you want a map of the city?
I hadn't thought of my parents, whomever they were, in a long time. I hadn't thought that many times, to be honest, of what their names might be. Why I was who I was, why Agatha. Our origin was as meaningless to us as it was painful. Sometimes I caught myself forgetting my aunt's name as well, and then I almost hated myself for remembering it. Why still so much bitterness? I tried not to judge myself. Time, despite its abstraction as immortals, did have its deleterious effect. I locked my door and kicked off my green leather boots and removed my socks and rubbed my feet for a good long while. Then I lay on the unmade bed. There was a window in my room, but it looked out on the wall. Still, it was quiet. Why the fuck did I care about any of this shit? I could stay here. I could just stay here until my money runs out. Then with just enough, I could take the train, the bus back to Woonsocket, and just do what I had intended all along. Make art, sell something here or there. But when I questioned myself, I did not feel much like making art, and I did find myself irritated by the events that had unfolded. I was ignoring the fact that I had felt indebted to Agatha, that I did want her back, that I did want to find a way, that I had a responsibility. Damn it. I was tired. Without the voices, I was spiraling. Sleep. You can. And so I did. Deeply, like thick mud mixed with sand, I felt myself slowly descend into a place I seldom went, one of acceptance. The voices were there. They stood above, very far above. All three of them were in thrones. They had my appearance, but different. One had a scar. One looked restless. The last seemed much like a child. How could I see them so far below, stuck in the mud, as I was? But I could. My sight would lift up and out of my body, and I could see them when they spoke. Wisdom is fleeting. Read between the lines, okay? I can tell you about pain. Said the Netto with a scar. He looked ashamed that I saw him with it. I can tell you how to avoid it. If you read between the lines, yes. Said the restless Netto. He seemed to be holding a dagger, and that dagger was uncomfortably like a phallus. And I will tell you to ignore them if you can, but you're further along than you care to admit, said the childlike Netto. 3 witches. That is why the prophecy. That is why I need them. Let me hold the dagger, I said, and at that they 3 laughed, and I was thrust downward back into the blackness. That would be my audience. I feared that was the end of the voices. I must grieve them like my childhood. I lay back in the blackness. I realized where I was. I was inside the painting. I was inside the anti-painting. I was inside the anti-art. I was inside the unconsciousness of the world. The prima materia. From here all were birthed. This place was immortal. It was resilience to all, to everything, births of stars and deaths of entire universes. How holy. And yet the 3 were above me. How could it be, I asked.
As above, so below,
said the prima materia. It sounded much like Harry. I woke up parched. The hostel gave us a bottle of water and I drank it thirstily. I had fallen asleep in my clothes, but I had clearly undressed. I was naked, standing in the chill of the room. A morning light streaked through a thin curtain. I walked over to it. Only a wall, some steam from the alley below. I walked over and looked at myself in the mirror. There were claw marks, like hands on my chest. I turned, more on my back. What? The hostel worker seemed a little perturbed to see me.
Hi, can I help you?
Yes, hi. I'm wondering, could I pay for another night?
Another? Yeah. Well, I mean, you're, let me see. Let me look up your account. So you're paid up until 2 weeks from now, exactly, tomorrow. You mean you want to extend? More? Longer, I mean?
I did not understand. What had happened? The scratches on my chest felt itchy. I realized my shirt was partially open. I buttoned it, looking absent-mindedly out at the entrance of the lobby. There were Christmas lights. Actually, no, that's quite all right. Drakunen. I reflexively tasted my tongue, my teeth, but it was only morning breath. I could not detect the taste of blood or anything. I went back to my room. I looked in the bag. The book was still there. And cash. I counted it. Still around the same amount, so it would seem. And yet I had paid for God knows how long. Before it had not been quite near Christmas time. Son of a... I needed to leave. I needed to distance myself. I needed to get away. The breath of the city hit me like a lover's on my neck. As immediately as I was out in the city, I regretted my decision to leave. What? I felt great. He used me. What? What thoughts were my own? Was he here now? Decidedly not. It was like a residue of Drakunen. His thought patterns remained, and yet they were my thoughts. Sleep. He struck when I slept. I was well rested. I would get what I needed awake, then I would leave. I could stay safely awake for a few nights, bark at the moon a little. Whatever. I ate the hot dog in 3 bites. I gave the man a large tip. I got chicken and rice. I ate it hungrily by a couple of women in soft fuzzy coats who were looking at me. I smiled at them. I felt my fangs were throbbing. Had he? Or was it something else? Had he found the line? Had he been fed enough? Alas, I was still myself. I gave them a last look before making my way towards the subway. The subway gyrations helped me focus. The scent of humanity, though overpowering, did much to distract me. I was suddenly aware that I wasn't getting overstimulated, not in the same way. Did I mind? Who was I if I was not someone sensitive and overwhelmed? How much did I fear this change? A man was drawing another man across from him a little ways down the car. I was envious, but of which one? It was already dusk when I got to the bookstore where I'd met Simon before. The store was fortunately open for a little while longer. I ordered an espresso, then another. Was this my third? I was concerned how time seemed to be slipping. One moment I was looking over a book, the next I was outside sipping the espresso. I looked up at the sky. A plane flew strangely low overhead. I thought of the dragon. The time before Simon seemed to disappear. The bookstore closed its doors. They forgot to take back the espresso cup, porcelain. I sat on the table outside. I craved a cigarette. When had I last craved a cigarette? I looked inside the empty porcelain espresso cup, the shape of a ring like the head of a snake, the eternal return. As above, so below. I'd forgotten to leave a note somehow. There was none from Simon. Why would there be? For some reason, I walked back to the youth hostel. I hoped I could get a good shiver going. I kept the espresso cup. Why? Thieving now? But there was a part of me that felt like I had to acquiesce, to perform bits of bad behavior, to keep Dracunin from thinking I wasn't running away from him or soon would be. That was the plan, wasn't it? My legs ached by the time I got back across the bridge to Manhattan and Central Park. I found the place where I had laid in the grass, I think. I lay in it for a moment. I could not see any stars. I retraced my steps in order to find Simon's apartment. I recognized it. I put in the code as I remembered it. It did not work. I tried again. Tried a slightly different combination. But I knew that wasn't it. They had changed it. Why wouldn't they? I rang the apartment. There was no answer. So what? Go to his school? Psychology class? I yawned. Shit, how far would I need to go? It had been someone else's money which had prepaid for all those hostel nights, but whose? What had Dracunin accomplished with all this? What did he hope to accomplish? What was his master plan? I went to the train station and looked up at the big board. I did not think it was wise to go to Providence. Somehow he might know Boston as well. We had been to Philadelphia before, but we had stayed pretty low-key. The haunting of the shark worried me, however. I still didn't know. What if I let him? Entrapped him? Went to sleep? Stayed aware somehow? Locked myself in the room? To what end? I took a midnight train. I took it to Philadelphia. And then I got on the train without a ticket to Washington, D.C. I paid the train man as I apologized. I found the cafe car. I ate the tuna sandwich. I sipped the lukewarm coffee. And slowly I felt myself ease up. I felt myself growing again. Uncertain, unsure, hesitant, insecure. Ah, said the voices. Welcome home. I leant back in my seat. My hand reached for my blue bunny bag, but it wasn't there. Right. I will tell you how it goes.